when you choose conversational AI. And I think this is actually quite an interesting topic to have now, because what we're seeing about here is about verification, about data, and about understanding your customer better. So, gentlemen, if you could take a seat. And what's interesting is I was standing over here just during the break, and someone who will remain nameless came in and said, "You're not going to believe this. The iovox guys can actually transcribe the calls and shove them into a database and help me do analytics. I want to try this." Right? And it's not a bullshit suck up to the sponsor stuff. It's actually real.
It's working well so far, though, Simon.
Sorry?
Nothing.
No, but it's actually a true conversation. So I thought in this conversation it would be really good to understand more about what iovox does, but more importantly how it links into these transaction-type businesses, about getting to data, about analysing what is really happening at the transaction level. Okay, so Ryan, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Do you want to give a brief overview of what iovox does?
Yeah, sure. We intend this to be more of a conversation, so it's not going to be like a hardcore sales pitch. We just wanted to sort of have a conversation amongst us and let everybody know what we do. So we're a communications analytics platform. So we track and analyze voice calls, SMS, email, form fills. We also are launching video shortly as well. And really what we're doing is we're trying to gather data and then figure out how to help our customers improve their businesses. So if you look at us like a Google Analytics, but with some consultancy, that's probably the best way to see us. We look at each business differently that works with us. We work with over 50 marketplaces around the world. We're pretty much the only global player in the industry. So we have offices in Paris, France, Sydney, Australia. We have London, UK. We have the US as well. And we work with very big brands in marketplaces, but also in healthcare, insurance, and various others. And each company, we basically gather an immense amount of data and then try and figure out how to help them. And some companies are at different life cycles and different stages. So sometimes they want to increase the quantity of leads, sometimes they want to increase the quality of leads, and sometimes they really don't know until they start to look at the data as to what the problems are and how we can help solve them.
Now, Javier, you've worked with a lot of different businesses around the world, from working in the Maturla Group and now consulting with a whole bunch of companies. How do you see products like iovox as really helping those portals, marketplaces, transaction-based businesses?
Well, first of all, I don't see it as a product. I see it as a tool. It's basically a Swiss knife that you pull out and you use depending on what you need, or what problem you want to solve. And secondly, I see that it's just the beginning of a new journey. Because when you start gathering data, when you start having visibility about what's going on once the client leaves the platform or connects with the advertiser or the seller, a whole new range of things happen. And things that you didn't imagine that were going to happen, and others that you knew that were happening, but you had no proof. And running a portal in an emerging market, we found that one of the hardest things that we had to face, and I think is similar to any market in any country, is convincing the agents of the value that we generate, and dealing with the complaints about the quality and the quantity of the leads that we provided. And that, I'm not going to say that solves the problem altogether, but sheds a lot of light and gives you very hard arguments to counteract any of those claims.
Now, James, you're working with, you've got a long history in portals, right? And to be transparent, James and I worked at REA back in 2000. So we've known each other a very long time. And you've seen both sides of the equation, right? From both the portal side and also from the iovox side. And you're working with iovox and working with many customers. How are they getting value from the iovox Swiss Army knife?
The Swiss Army knife. Nice analogy, Javier. Look, I think undoubtedly it varies by market, obviously. Each market has different nuances, but I think there are some fundamentals, no matter what marketplace or region you operate in, which is common across property portals or automotive portals. I think the biggest focus at the moment, and Malcolm's presentation earlier on in the day, I thought really summed it up a lot of our conversations very, very clearly. A lot of the conversation at the moment tends to be around how do I get into this vendor lead? How do I get an understanding of the volume of vendors that are just navigating across my site? And by using data and the various solutions, actually being able to isolate them off and then start to paint a picture to the advertiser.
Seller leads, right?
Seller leads, sorry. Vendor leads, seller leads, exactly. And that's Now, how the marketplace then navigates in the market and then changes their model is another piece. But the vendor leads is a big piece at the moment. But also just the simplicity around. There was a really big lesson for me when I moved from Australia, for those of you who don't know, to Europe. I was surprised consistently with the number ones and number twos in each market. They're sort of reporting to us that over 50% of their leads are actually coming from telephone. Now, that surprised me. I didn't think it would be that high. So we often hear about the black box. If 50% of your leads are coming from a telephone source, you want to know what's happening within that call, right? You need to be able to, and the fact that we can, I suppose, strip it down to a data set, 50% of your leads into a data set, it gives you full transparency across what's going on your site and the multiple opportunities around it, right?
And actually knowing how many of those are actual leads, because if the click to reveal doesn't tell you that.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, before I go a bit deeper on this, getting to the data set, I've got a question here. So if you write a question that at least pops up on the iPad, aren't you scared about phone calls dying out? Okay, as lots of millennials, and I've got 3 of them, right, hate actually making a telephone call, right? Everything's done through texting.
No, we track texting as well, but we don't really care, honestly. It's as long as communication keeps going, we're fine. So as I said before, we're adding video, we track texting, we track form fills, we track emails, but amazingly, we're not seeing that trend happen at all. We're actually seeing phone calls become more important. And I think during the whole COVID pandemic, we saw a lot of people who used to track how their business was doing based on web hits change to tracking communications, because everyone was at home bored. So everyone, of course, is looking at the castle they're not going to buy. But when they phone up a real estate agent, they obviously don't do that for fun, because, no offense, but nobody's phoning a real estate agent for fun. So they started to track, okay, how many people are actually reaching out to these agents? But whether it's via text, whether it's video, we have VoIP solutions using, connection straight through a website browser. We don't really care. As long as people are still communicating, we're happy. But we're not seeing any decrease in volume of calls, for sure.
And I think there's also a trust issue and a level of quality issue. When you are just approaching and considering the idea, you're fine with just a text. Can you give me some details on the property? But when you're really thinking of buying it, you want to talk to the human that it's selling you the property or that it's handling the property, and get all these questions out. And also you need to get asked a lot of questions. So I think if you're a serious buyer, you'll end up using the phone or a meeting personally. But you're not going to do everything on text.
It's value driven as well. If you're buying a pencil, you don't care. But the more expensive the house is, the higher percentage of phone calls to emails. Rentals, for example, are a higher percentage email than calls compared to acquisition. If you're buying an actual house, you're more likely to phone up. And as the property price goes up, that increases. And as you said as well, in person, obviously, is the other one.
Now, we saw a stat earlier on one of the presentations, a very low number of, maybe it was Konstantin's presentation about Rightmove, I think it might have been, about a very low percentage of leads are ever actioned by agents. You must see the same trends, right? And I assume you see it not only across agency, but also real estate, motoring and other.
If you want me to answer that one, right? I think one of the biggest challenges that the auto industry are talking to us about is how they're seeing themselves as the marketplace, generating exactly what you said, the lead to the dealer, and having a lack of transparency across the dealer, the response rate and things like that. So there's technology that we put in place, obviously, to do that. I think the evolution with the agencies is around, I think there's probably 3 steps. Step 1 is actually start to use some sort of tracking, get an understanding of volume, and then which gives you attribution. Number 2 is what's happening on or within these calls. And then number 3 is probably the downstream piece. And there's a lot of conversations with a lot of large franchise brands across Europe in conjunction with the portal partner to say, guys, your efficiencies are probably a little bit poor, shall we say. And if you just install, and this is something that was talked about in Masterclass yesterday, if you just install and actually follow some basic KPIs, your upside is significant. We know, typically, 40% of calls go in the past went unanswered. Duration of calls, all this we know this data, and we probably know, well, in conjunction with the partners, we know more probably about the business efficiencies of the advertisers than the advertiser themselves do. So that's obviously a good opportunity down the
And you
path.
can very easily solve most of those problems because you
Easily.
can automize the call back from the agent when they don't answer at a certain time, or you can send them a message or an SMS saying, you have a missed call, hit here and make the bloody call.
Yeah. There's a couple of dimensions to this. One is about responsiveness, and we talked about it in yesterday's masterclass. Yeah, I think it was mentioned up here today by Constantine as well about one of the key metrics is how quickly someone answers a call, right? Because the buyer's hot, they're in the right frame of mind, you've got to get back to them. And you're providing that data. The other is what's talked about. And I think you might have mentioned the other day to me, James, and you said don't talk about it, but I think it's a good insight, is that a lot of times when you interrogate a call, there's a customer saying, can you do something for me? And yet the agent then never responds. Do you want to?
Yeah, I think there's a classic example. We work with partners and we help them review some of the calls. So that, I think there's 1,000 calls that we helped review with one of our partners, and it was the advertiser, the consumer ringing the real estate agent. And it's just basic sales, but you sit back and you go, wow, missed opportunity, missed opportunity. And the classic one that rings true to me is a particular buyer rang about an inspection for 34 Smith Street. The real estate agent focused on that and trying to secure the appointment, which was great. A metric was ticked off. But during the conversation, it went on for 4.5 odd minutes. The buyer actually acknowledged also that they hadn't sold a house and they probably needed finance. Now, the real estate agent didn't go down the route of, okay, let's have a further conversation about that. Can I come and appraise your property? Oh, by the way, we have a mortgage arm in the business. Would you like me to get somebody to talk to you about that? It was literally, okay, no, I'll meet you tomorrow at 11 o'clock and I look forward to that, Simon.
So then, Ryan, how are your customers using this information? One thing is to sit there and listen to 1,000 calls. The other is to take that and somehow voice to text and then put into data sets. How do you think about using AI around that, and what do you guys do?
So we track and analyze what happened during the call. Excuse me. Just inhaled something. But what we're trying to figure out is what happens during that call. And some of our customers, for example, we have one who had over 100,000 calls analyzed, and they had identified a huge amount of people who didn't ask basic questions. And the questions that they didn't ask were, do you need a mortgage? So that actually showed, when they extrapolated from those who did ask who wanted a mortgage and those who didn't ask, and the revenue assigned to those who did ask, they saw a huge amount of revenue which was lost, which was, for one brand, £2.4 million. Simply by asking, do you need a mortgage?
So it's the basics that just aren't being done right. So this
Yeah.
gives you transparency into what's happening day to day, minute to minute.
So just
And
with
it's
those
important,
interactions.
it's important that it's automated so that they do 100% of calls. They don't need to listen to calls. An email or a webhook or a CRM injection happens to say, this person needs a mortgage. Contact them immediately. Or, this person didn't ask if this person needs a mortgage. Contact that person.
So how are you hooking that into their existing systems?
We can do it it depends on how sophisticated the company is. So if they have a CRM system, we can put it straight into the CRM system.
And
If
this is as a prompt to do something.
This will be, here's the call that happened, here's the outcome, here's what was missed, and here's the transcription of the call.
Right.
And we can do it via an email. Some customers don't have a CRM system for that. They want an email with these details, log in here. Obviously, there's GDPR and stuff like that, so everything is secured. So you can log in and then view it. And then you can look at the stats and analytics to say, okay, this many things happened, this many things didn't happen. You can use it as a training exercise. A lot of our customers are using it to generate more revenue, but a lot of our customers are using it just to make their customers feel better, because at the end of the day, if you're helping your customers make more money, they're going to be happy. So when we have anything from people who used to mark junk leads at anything under 30 seconds, we had a great example the other week by somebody who literally said, I want to buy this car. Is it for sale? I'm a cash buyer. I'll be there at 5 o'clock. Great. Okay, we'll still be open. I'll stay open. That was a junk lead. It's absolutely not a junk lead, but that's what it's listed as if you don't actually know what happened during the call itself.
So the way to think about it is that there's the calls that get actioned properly, right? Fantastic, tick, it flows through. You're just making sure it happens, and you've got some stats. Right through to the clangers, the missed opportunities.
Yeah.
And you're then helping recycle that lead fast. So I assume this is fast processing?
Yeah, it all happens straight away after the call.
And you work with each partner to define what are these calls to action, this ring, this keywords that you need to ingest into the platform to identify opportunities, or if they're good for training, for creating trends. What do the best-selling agents do? If you have your own call center, to monitor the call center, but also to teach other people that come after what is the proper way to run it.
Yeah, I think there's two distinctions here. We're sort of talking about the advertisers here, and that's great. So there's the efficiencies that you can provide, or the improvement in efficiencies you can provide them. But typically what I'd be suggesting is, as the marketplace, start to absorb this data for 3 to 6 months, get an understanding of really what's going on your site before releasing it to the advertisers, because that then provides you the opportunity, okay, do I just want to use this to improve their efficiencies, or can I identify opportunities on here or new revenue streams on my site that maybe I might bypass, whether that be seller leads, whether that be finance leads, whatever it might be. But I would be suggesting strongly, sit back, 3 months, package the data together, get a really good understanding, and then work out which direction you're going to take.
One of the interesting things is, and masterclass we ran yesterday, was looking at, when you look at those companies that are, being these tech-enabled brokers or digital real estate agents, whatever you want to call them, right? The objective is to leverage technology to drive as much human interaction and error out of it, and focus in on those moments of truth that you do need to have human interaction. And it sounds like the technology and the Swiss Army knife, as you call it, that you guys have, really helps bring that model to life and execute it at a far greater level than if you've got 25 people sitting around in a call center without anything more than just a basic CRM system. Would that be the best way to think about it?
Yeah, I mean, it's finding out what's going on is one thing, but then there's so much data. So it's finding out what is the important pieces of data that are relevant to your business. Mm-hmm. Sometimes our customers want to get more customers. Sometimes they want to increase the revenue per customer. Sometimes they want to save marketing costs. So we have a company that reduced their marketing spend by 20%, because what they did is they triggered things where when the person called up, they said different keywords, which were far cheaper to buy. So they're long-tail keywords. So they changed their marketing campaigns to use long-tail keywords because they knew what people were asking for when they phoned up, which wasn't what they thought. So it really depends on the customer.
And there's a lot of work now being developed around private property or private owners protection, fraud detection, privacy. You don't want to publish your personal mobile number on the web for everyone to see.
Okay. So one last, and there's a question from the audience, is what are the metrics you're most proud of identifying since you started datafying customer calls?
Datafying. Good
Datafying.
word. Like
Good
that.
word.
Insights.
Datafying. There we go. What would be the key metric, the key observation that you like? That was the most insightful thing or the most interesting thing. And you've got years of experience.
I'll probably go, and we can't share everyone's data. Some are more than happy to share than others, and we're really fortunate that the Zoopla guys are more than happy to share their information publicly or take any calls from you. The key one for me around this, and it was early days, was that they run, or pre-programmed, whatever you want to say, all of their calls are being recorded by us and transcribed, and they run 34 keywords at last check, 34 keywords across them to try and identify what phrases are being used, what's the common language. Every call on average was returning 6 revenue opportunities for them or their customer. So whether that be an inspection, whether that be a contract request, whether that be whatever it might be. So to me, that's a great starting point to then expand, and as we learn over the years, I suppose that gives you an additional funnel of revenue, doesn't it, to explore.
And I think to link this back to a lot of the strategic conversation earlier, we're going into a period of potential recession, of very challenging times, and as Mostyn and Andrew were talking about, is you've got to focus on your costs, you've got to maximise your revenue opportunities, you've got to do everything you possibly can to make the most of what you've got. And it would seem to me that products and services like iovox does, I think are very important for businesses to think about incorporating into their daily operations to make the most of everything they're doing at the moment.
That's right, yeah. If you can't increase the volume of leads that you're generating, you better do something to the quality of them. Because
And to me, there's a fundamental leap in the value that you provide when you tell the statistics at the end of the month saying your ad was viewed 10,000 times, you had 5,000 clicks, and you got 30 emails and 40 clicks to reveal, as opposed to you got 40 calls, 7 of which ended up on a viewing appointment.
So I love what the iovox guys does, and not only because you sponsor the conference, because like that, but thank you for doing that. But I actually really like your product. We've had a long-term relationship, and I really like how the product and the conversations have evolved over time, because it seems that you're getting deeper and deeper and deeper into solving the real business issues that businesses face. So thank you very much, everyone, for taking the time to chat about what iovox is doing.
No problem.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I mean, we're not really a technology company. We're more sort of a data company, and that's why we have people like these guys who know the industry inside out. So we're not just buying technology and building it and throwing it at people. We build everything with our partners in mind. And you mentioned Zoopla. Zoopla are an amazing partner. They're constantly innovating, and we innovate alongside everybody else. Everything we build in-house, and it's for our customers. So.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I get the order?